3 bone-chilling lake house horror stories that haunt you forever at midnight on the edge of a shadowy lake, where the moon's reflection flickered like a warning, 3 stories twisted together in a ghastly knot. The chill in the air wasn't just from the water, it was the kind of cold that seeped right into your bones, whispering secrets of long-buried fears. This is where nightmares found a home, where the wind itself seemed to carry the screams of those who dared to tread too close. First, there was the tale of the old woman in the white shawl, drifting silently across the lake each night. Locals called her Whispering Mary. They said she beckoned to the living, eyes dark like the depths of the water, each glance a promise of doom. Fishermen swore they could hear her murmuring names, pleading for something lost long ago. It was said that anyone who answered her call would vanish into the fog, never to return. Just the thought of it sent shivers down spines. What could she want? And who had dared to listen? Then, there were the children, the ones who played too close to the shore. Every summer brought stories of laughter that turned to hollow echoes as if someone dimmed the happy sounds. On moonless nights, folks would hear them singing, a haunting melody that sent hearts racing. They whispered of an abandoned boat, forever anchored by the spirit of a girl who drowned decades ago, her laughter forever twisted with sorrow and mischief. The lucky ones who managed to escape her grasp spoke of a ghostly face peering from the water, lips curled in a smile that was anything but friendly, and finally, there was the legend of the lake's depths, a secret so sinister that few who knew dared to speak of it. Deep down, beneath the shifting sands, lies a submerged cabin, drowning in darkness. They say it belonged to a family that simply vanished one night, leaving behind only splashes of blood on the water's surface. Curious souls who tried to explore it speak of shadows clawing at them, pulling them under. The very lake itself seemed to have eyes, watching and waiting for its next victim. What happened to that family? Who or what was responsible? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the night thickened, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the chill seeping deeper into the lake house walls. Just as someone tossed a rock into the lake, a distorted splash echoed through the air, reverberating with a promise of chaos. All at once, the heavy silence was punctured by a scream from the forest, raw, frantic, and desperate. Who's out there? Did someone just become the next story to haunt the lake? Each heartbeat quickened, every shadow loomed larger, and the only question echoing now felt like a drumbeat in their ears: who would survive to tell the tale? The blood-curdling scream sent adrenaline coursing through the veins of everyone huddled in the lake house. A chill settled over the small group, and dark shadows danced menacingly against the wooden walls, reminiscent of the eerie tales they had shared. They exchanged nervous glances, each one wondering if the legend had stepped out of the depths of their fears. "Must be some animal," Tom finally said, forcing a bravado that felt hollow, but no one appeared convinced. The tension hung heavy in the air, thick, like the fog that rolled off the lake, obscuring vision and stirring dread. Kelly shifted uneasily, her heart pounding as every creak of the old house sounded like a whisper calling her name. "Or maybe it's Whispering Mary," Anna purred, her eyes glimmering with mischief, trying to lighten the mood but only drawing horrified looks. "You heard what they say, she only calls out for those who dared to listen." "Shut up, Anna," Kelly snapped, more frightened than angry. "Not now." The room fell silent again, each person lost in their thoughts, imagining the lake's murky depths and the lost souls there. In a bizarre twist, fear had bound them together, and for a moment, they instinctively reached for one another, searching for comfort. But then, another noise shattered the relative calm, a soft, splashing sound, as if something had breached the lake's surface just beyond their view. "What was that?" Mike whispered, eyes wide. His voice trembled, and he turned to peer out of the window, trying to catch a glimpse of the lake. "Can you see anything?" "No, it's too dark." Tom stepped forward, peering alongside him. Just then, a beam of pale moonlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the water's surface. The reflection rippled and shifted, and in that moment, a figure emerged, a ghostly woman in a tattered white shawl, gliding just beyond the edges of the dock. "Mary!" Anna's voice rang out, half in fascination, half in horror. The others recoiled, their breaths hitching. "I told you, don't look." Kelly's warning came too late, as all eyes were fixed on the apparition. The woman turned towards them, and her dark eyes seemed to hold centuries of sorrow within. Instead of anguishing pleas, an eerie calm washed over the lake as she gestured slowly, her finger beckoning them closer. "No, we can't," Mike shouted, backing away. "She wants us to go out there." But the spell had been cast. Anna, drawn like a moth to flame, crept towards the door, her feet moving of their own will. "What if she needs help?" she murmured, misunderstanding the danger. "Anna, stop." Tom lunged forward but was stopped by a sudden rush of wind that slammed the door shut behind her, as if the house itself refused to let anyone leave. Dark laughter swirled around them, incomprehensible but malicious, echoing through the space. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows stretching and reaching, almost alive. The others stood frozen, panic rising like the tide, specters of past horrors flooding their minds. Every ghostly tale they had shared now felt like a terrifying reality, and the gnawing dread that someone would answer the call became almost unbearable. But just then, the water around the dock began to churn violently. Something deep beneath the lake awakened. Whatever it wasn't done. "Get to the basement. Now!" Tom yelled, breaking the paralysis that had gripped them. They stumbled together towards the heavy door, backs against it as they felt the urgency in the air. The weight of whatever lurked outside pressed down on them like a nightmare made flesh. Knowing their fate could change in an instant, they hurried down the creaking steps. The darkness swallowed them, and the door slammed shut behind them. What lay in those inky depths? Would they escape the lake's grasp, or would they become part of its cursed history? As they huddled in the damp gloom, they heard a soft cry floating down through the darkness, wrapping around them like a sinister embrace. "Will you answer?" The question echoed in their minds, a ghostly whisper promising revelations even darker than their worst fears. And then, they realized they might not be alone down there. They weren't the first to seek shelter from the horrors above, and they might not survive the truth that awaited them. What answer would they give? And who else might be waiting to hear it? The air in the basement was heavy with moisture and a musty scent that threatened to choke them. The dim light from Kelly's dying phone barely pierced the darkness, casting long shadows that twisted and contorted. Tom's heart raced as he turned to face the others, the panic swirling around them like the murky water above. "This isn't right," he said, his voice cracking. "We need to stay calm." "Calm?" Kelly shot back, her eyes wide. "A ghost just called for us, and we're in a basement. This is insane. There has to be a way out." Mike's voice trembled, but he tried to sound hopeful, searching the room. His gaze fell on a small window high above, almost a sliver of light peeking from the outside world. It seemed impossibly far. Suddenly, the walls shuddered, and the soft cry echoed again, closer this time. "Will you answer?" It felt like an old friend calling out through the darkness, coaxing and familiar, yet sinister. "No. No, we can't," Anna whimpered, hugging her knees to her chest. Her voice was barely above a whisper, full of disbelief as she tried to convince herself it wasn't real. "We can't answer. We have to get out of here." Tom moved toward the wall, palm pressed against the cool surface, looking for anything that might give way. "We could break the window," he hesitated, glancing back at the others. The idea felt insane, yet the thought of being trapped unnerved him even more. "No." Kelly interrupted, shaking her head fiercely. "What if we break it and something comes in? What if Mary comes in?" The mocking laughter from above had faded, but a weighty silence consumed them, amplifying their shared dread. They could almost feel the water from the lake rising, the pressure of it closing in. A sickening thought crept into Tom's mind: what if they couldn't get out? What if escaping the lake house meant answering that haunting call? Okay, let us think, Mike urged, his gaze darting around as though answers were hidden in the corners. We have to find something. A way to defend ourselves, or any sort of weapon. Anna motioned toward a dusty corner where old tools lay abandoned. Look there. A hammer, she whispered, scrambling to retrieve it. Tom followed her lead, frantically searching. The sound of her hand scraping against the ground filled the silence, but it didn't seem enough against the chilling call of the ghostly figure looming over them. As they collected the tools, hammers, old paint cans, anything they could find, the air thickened, and a sliver of a shadow crept across the wall. Did you see that? Kelly gasped, pointing to the dark smear moving past them, creeping ever closer. Panic surged through the group again as they huddled together, instinctively forming a barrier not of strength but of fear. I can't take it anymore. Kelly cried, her voice rising in desperation. We've got to try getting out of here. Wait. Tom shouted. What if we don't have to answer? What if we can ignore it? The air froze, each of them contemplating the weight of his words. But could they really ignore the call? The thought of ignoring whatever haunted them, of refusing to answer, blasted through their own fears. The cry echoed, vibrating against the walls. Will you answer? Why does it keep asking? What does it want? Anna turned, her countenance pale, eyes wide with terror glistening in the dark. We need to decide, and fast, Tom urged, urgency in his voice. Their hearts thudded in unison, a rhythmic drum signaling the standoff between them and whatever lay beyond the door. With trembling hands, Tom gripped the hammer tightly, feeling the weight of their choice pressing down like a vice. The whispers from above morphed into sinister undertones, growing stronger, more insistent. Will you answer? It filled their heads, daring them. Will we? Mike murmured, breathing heavily as he hovered near the door. What would they choose? Answer the call and face the haunting truth, or fight back, risk everything? The very fabric of their lives hung by a thread, and the time to decide was nearing an end just as the shadows around them began to shift. Again, what would the darkness reveal? And what price would they pay for the answers it sought? Tom's grip tightened around the hammer, his knuckles whitening as he looked to his friends, desperate to rally their spirits. Kelly's face was pale, almost ghostly in the dim light, and Anna's wide eyes reflected fear, deep and consuming. Mike shifted restlessly, glancing toward the heavy door that stood between them and whatever horror loomed outside. Guys, we need to make a choice, Tom said, his voice steady but low. I can't stand here just waiting. We're not answering that call. We fight. We look for a way out. The murmurs of agreement were weak, shadows of their former resolve. And if it comes for us? Anna whispered, clutching the hammer tightly, as if it could somehow absorb their fears. Then we defend ourselves, Tom said, determination spreading through him, igniting a spark of hope amidst the terror. The walls shuddered again, the faint echo of "Will you answer?" A cruel reminder of their grim reality. With each tremor, the call seemed to be a warning, or perhaps a taunt. Tom's gaze darted to the window, desperate, out of reach. What if we stack up the tools and climb? Mike suggested, his voice rising slightly. The flicker of possibility twinkled in his eyes, even through the prevailing darkness. It's too high, Kelly said, shaking her head. What if we fall? Then we'll have to take our chances, Tom replied, scanning the room for anything more sturdy than the meager tools in their hands. Do you hear that? Anna breathed, her voice trembling. Noise slithered through the cracks, faint whispers threading their way into the corners of the room. They paused, and stilled, just as the whispers escalated into chilling voices. Will you answer? The air was so thick it felt like they were suffocating. The group huddled closer, minds racing with unsaid thoughts. What if this wasn't he just a ghost? What if it was something far worse waiting just out of sight? No, we can't answer. Kelly cried, her voice breaking. If we do, what if it comes for us? Then we'll fight it together. Tom turned his attention back to the entrance, a battle-hardened resolve plastered on his face. On the count of 3, we break down that door. We escape, we fight if we need to, but we refuse to let this thing take us. It was a plan shrouded in fear, yet fueled by an unyielding sense of survival. They all understood fleeing could lead to the unknown, but staying here was a trap. Ready? He asked, adrenaline sparking in each of them. Ready, they all echoed, hearts pounding. 1-2. Tom felt the wavering strength of their unity, the raw intensity binding them together. 3. They surged forward, using their combined weight against the door. It rattled but held firm. Each slam resonated throughout the basement, rallying their courage while shadows writhed at the edges, deeper, darker. Then it happened, the door flew open unexpectedly, prefaced by a sinister, spine-chilling laugh echoing from the shadows, freezing them in their tracks. Outside, the dim light seeped in, revealing an empty corridor littered with remnants of the past, cracked photographs, dust-covered furniture, memories once cherished. But starvation for answers gnawed at them. Go. Now. Tom shouted as the shadowy whispers coiled tightly around them, threatening to consume everything. They stumbled into the hallway, hearts racing, the hammer pressed firmly to Tom's chest. Suddenly, the lights flickered erratically, and the temperature plummeted. Shadows loomed and danced on the walls. The laughter faded, but the call, relentless, seeped into their minds. Will you answer? Anna screamed as the floorboards creaked ominously beneath them, the echoes of their own hearts and footsteps swallowed whole by darkness. They charged forward, glancing over their shoulders, dread coursing through. Where was it? What was behind them? Suddenly, a cold breath, a whisper tickled Tom's ear. You can't ignore me. Panic surged. What truth did it promise, and at what cost? Run! He screamed, the weight of dread crashing down as they fled deeper into the darkness. But the question hung heavily: would they ever truly escape? The night was far from over, and the answers were just beginning to reveal themselves, but at what terrible price? Tom's heart raced as they sprinted down the narrow corridor, his breath hitching in his throat like a caught fish. Shadows darted alongside them, swirling and writhing as if alive. Where was the door leading outside? Every step felt weighted, as if the air itself conspired against their escape. Each distance stretched into a tormenting infinity, while the whispers grew louder. Keep going. Don't look back. Tom shouted, pushing his friends forward, his words almost swallowed by the deepening night that was increasingly alive around them. The corridor opened up into a larger room, dimly lit by the sickly glow of a single flickering light bulb. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsating softly as if sharing an unspeakable intention. Dust hung in the air, swirling in chilling patterns, reminding Tom of cheap horror films where something never quite stays dead. Is this a living room? Kelly murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. It was. But it felt wrong. Worn-out couches sagged like reluctant beasts, and a coffee table was littered with broken glass. Scattered across the floor were remnants of a life that once thrived here: a child's toy, a faded photograph of a smiling family, now dust-covered and forgotten. Time stood still in this place. It felt malicious. Tom turned on his heel, eyes darting left and right, scanning for exits. We have to keep moving, he said. We can't stay here. Suddenly, a heavy thump resonated from somewhere behind them, a sound like a body hitting the ground. Instinctively, they all froze, bodies tensed. The whispers rushed back into their ears, the cold breath intensifying to an almost tangible presence. Will you answer? The voice wrapped around each of them, caressing then suffocating. Tom. Anna whispered, panic lacing her tone. What if it's not just a voice? What if it's out there? No. He shot back, anger sparking with the adrenaline in his veins. We can't give in. Let us. But before he could finish his thought, the oppressive atmosphere thickened, sucking the warmth from the room. A shadow flickered, darting just outside the reach of the light. The shape elongated, stretching into grotesque forms that could only represent the unspeakable horror they were escaping. "Run!" Tom shouted again, ripping through the moment's hesitation. They bolted towards a doorway at the far end of the room, yanking it open that a staircase spiraled downwards into darkness, and the air felt charged, electric. If they were to face their fear, it was here, undoing the past that haunted them, maybe beneath this very house. "Down!" he urged, leading the way. Each footfall on the wooden steps echoed ominously. Time and reality warped around them as they rushed down. Just as they reached the bottom, the door they had come through slammed shut with a deafening bang, reverberating through the silence. They spun around, backs pressed to the cold stairwell wall, eyes glued to the door. Whispers intensified, now mingled with soft, derisive chuckles. "I thought you were brave," a voice slunk out of the shadows. It wrapped around their minds, visceral fear clawing at their insides. "Who are you?" Mike croaked, his voice cracking under the weight of dread. A figure stepped from the abyss, luminous eyes focused on them, a smirk carving its way across a face twisted with ghastly delight. "I've been waiting, all your lives." As the figure advanced, the shadows surged forward like hungry wolves. Tom and his friends were trapped, and clarity dawned. The past had come alive. It wasn't about escape anymore. This was a confrontation. "Fight!" he yelled, raising the hammer as the darkness closed in, hungry for their fear and their answer, but the figure laughed, its voice a chilling melody. "You still think you can choose? What if they couldn't? What if the answers were worse than the questions?" A reckoning loomed, and Tom felt its grip tighten not just on their bodies, but on their very spirits. Would they discover the truth that night, or be devoured before they could? The shadows hissed as they twisted and writhed in response to the confrontation. A cold sweat broke across Tom's brow. He gripped the hammer tightly, knuckles white with fear. His heart thundered in time with the sinister laughter echoing through the stairwell, mocking him, taunting him to consider the horror ahead. "Don't let it get in your head," Tom shouted, his voice surprisingly steady against the chaos around them. Behind him, Anna and Mike stood uncertain, every instinct pulling them back toward the darkness they had just escaped. Kelly was the first to respond, inching forward, her face pale but eyes seething with determination. "I'm not going to let it win," she shouted, defiance mixing with her fear. "Together," Mike urged, joining her as they framed a protective circle around Tom. Slowly, the weight of their situation sank into their hearts. This figure was not just a monster, it was a reflection of all the terror they had buried. The smirk on the figure's face widened, unsettlingly toothy. "You think you stand a chance against your ghosts? The truth is far worse than the nightmares you've conjured." Tom's mind raced. He knew each of their pasts was stained, darkened by regrets, the kind that festered and grew. "What do you want from us?" he roared, the hammer raised, but uncertainty seeped into his voice. "Everything," the figure replied, its voice silky and filled with ages of torment. "Your joys, your sorrows, every word left unspoken, every moment wasted. Only then can you truly be free." Tom's stomach twisted as the shadows flickered and danced, revealing glimpses of their shared history, moments that left raw scars in their hearts. A scene exploded among the sparks of darkness, revealing Anna, years ago, curled up after a family fight, Mike's devastated face when he lost his younger sister, and the betrayal that nearly crushed Kelly when her best friend abandoned her. Each memory unfurled around them, enveloping them in crushing despair. "Stop it!" Tom screamed, striking the floor with the hammer. "We are not defined by our past." Energy surged between them, igniting their resolve. The figure, momentarily stunned, stepped back, but its laughter resumed, echoing through the sprawling basement, ringing in their ears. "Defiance only deepens your wounds. You can't fight what you are." "Maybe we can't change what happened," Kelly murmured, gaining confidence as light flickered in her eyes. "But we can reclaim our strength." The air shifted, electric with their combined bravery. Tom felt the underground walls pulsating, and behind him the shadows convulsed, swirling frantically as their hopes began to shine. They are just memories. They do not control us. He yelled, channeling the strength of their shared moments of joy, pushing back the oppressive darkness. With each word, the shadows shrank, quivering like frightened animals. Fueled by newfound determination, the four of them joined together, arms linked, summoning all the light they could muster against the encroaching doom. Suddenly, the shadowy figure lunged, its claws swiping toward them, but they held firm, a shimmering barrier of will rising around them. "This is our confrontation," Tom yelled, his voice clear and commanding. "And we're not backing down." With a final collective scream, the power of their courage burst forth, illuminating the darkened space. The figure howled, a sound worse than any horror they had ever experienced, as the shadows around it disintegrated into nothingness. When silence fell, the basement felt emptier, as if something essential had been cleansed from its walls. They stood there panting, hearts racing, still clutching each other as hands, a circle of support amidst fledgling trust, but just as they thought they had won, a faint whisper returned, slithering through the cracks like a malevolent breeze. "You've only begun to awaken the truth." Shivers ran down Tom's spine, and dread filled his chest. "What truth?" The last gasp of the sinister voice echoed around them, sparking more questions than answers. What lay ahead of them, and were they truly free? They exchanged glances, their resolve melting away under the weight of an awakening horror. Could the past truly stay buried, or had they ignited a monster lurking even deeper within? The air buzzed with tension as Tom and the others stood in the aftermath of their fierce battle. The remains of the shadowy figure faded into the corners of the basement, but its chilling whispers clung to their skin. The truth echoed in Tom's mind like an alarm. What truth? Were they truly free, or had they just kicked the hornet's nest of their own nightmares? Anna broke the silence, her voice trembling. Did we really defeat it? "I don't know," Mike admitted, scanning the room. He felt exposed, every shadow now a possible threat. The heaviness of their past refused to release them. Each memory hung like a fog, threatening to suffocate their newfound courage. Kelly squeezed Tom's hand tighter, searching for reassurance. "We faced it, right? We confronted our fears together. That counts for something." But even she felt the chill creeping back in. Just then, the walls seemed to pulse, a low rumble resonating through the ground beneath them. Together, they took a step back, eyes darting around, searching for threats. "Time's not on our side," Tom said, adrenaline clawing at his insides. "Let us get out of here and regroup. We need to figure out what that thing meant." They hurried up the stairs, the vibrations of the basement still echoing around them. As they emerged into the dim light of the main house, the air was thick with dread. "Talk about a mood killer," Mike said, trying to lighten the atmosphere, but it fell flat. The fear was palpable, creeping into their thoughts like a vine. They all knew they had only peeled back the first layer of their shared monstrosity. "Can we just talk?" Anna asked as they settled into the living room. "What if the figure was right? What if there's more we need to face?" The idea struck them all like a shockwave. Each one carried their own burdens, frayed edges that made them feel raw and vulnerable. "We have to talk about what really hurts us," Tom said. "Each of us, right here and now." One by one, they shared their stories, the fights, the loss, the betrayals. The recounting felt like peeling away layers of skin, raw and painful. As the daylight dimmed outside, the shadows returned, creeping up the walls, listening intently. "I've never forgiven myself for turning my back when I should be been there for my sister," Mike confessed, pain flashing in his eyes. "I never told my mom how much I loved her before she passed," Kelly added, tears welling. "She deserved to hear it." Tom felt his throat tighten, recalling his own buried guilt. "I could have saved him. I should have." The moment his voice broke was like breaking glass, splintering the fragile atmosphere. As they spoke, shadows seemed to swell in defiance, swirling restlessly against the walls. The light dimmed further, as if the room itself was pulling away from the truth being laid bare. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from the kitchen. They froze, staring at the doorway. What was that? Anna whispered, pulse quickening. They hurried to their feet, hearts pounding in unison. The cold that once felt like a distant rumor now gripped their chests like a vice. They approached the kitchen door cautiously. Just a few steps. Just a few breaths. As they peered around the corner, a figure, blurred and indistinct, haunted the space, the same sinister impression they had encountered moments before. Then, it spoke again, its voice slithering into their thoughts like a serpent. "Oh, but what fun it will be to explore the truth with you." A wave of icy fear washed over them. Were they truly ready to face what lay ahead? Or had they awakened something darker, an endless cycle of torment they could never escape? The answer lurked in the shadows, waiting for them to take that next breath. It lunged toward them, a blurred figure that seemed to distort the very air around it. Tom's heart raced. "Run!" he shouted, instinctively pushing Kelly and Anna back from the doorway. The kitchen light flickered ominously, casting erratic shadows that twisted like serpentine forms across the walls. "Where do we go?" Mike shouted, panic flooding his voice as he stumbled backward. The tight squeeze of fear gripped Tom's throat as he looked for an escape. "Out! Anywhere but here." He darted to the living room, the others close behind, but the whispers began again, filling their minds with chilling promises of unresolved pain. The air was thick with dread, slowly choking their resolve. As they reached the front door, it swung open, revealing the darkened expanse outside, the night sky a blanket of threatening clouds. Cold wind bit at their skin. "We should stick together," Kelly urged, but her voice wavered. Just then, the figure stepped into the threshold, barely more than a shadow, yet somehow defined by the growing despair around them. "Leaving already? You've barely begun to uncover your truths," it taunted, voice dripping with malice. "Shut up!" Anna cried, throwing a nearby book at the figure, but it passed right through as if it had no substance. The attack fueled their instinct yet twisted their anger into a chaotic frenzy. Each one of them felt it, the burning desire to fight, to push back against the darkness that threatened to consume them once more. "We need to face it head on," Tom said, striving to sound strong even though his legs trembled beneath him. "It wants us to be scared. We need to remember our stories." "Are you nuts?" Mike exclaimed, stepping back. "You want to stand there and bare our souls while that thing is looming over us?" "It's the only way," Tom insisted, determination rising above fear. "What we feel keeps it strong. If we confront this, maybe we can weaken it." As he spoke, the figure slithered closer, its eyes like nothing they had ever seen, voids of sorrow and destruction. "Oh, how delightful!" it hissed, relishing their shared fear. "Let us see how deep the scars go, shall we?" "All right, I'll go first," Anna blurted, stepping forward despite her quaking hands. "When my brother died, I didn't have the courage to be there for him. I thought I'd somehow save him," but her eyes glistened, pain etched into her features as she faced the entity. "I did nothing. I watched him fade away. I should have fought harder." The figure trembled as Anna's truth cut through the room like a knife. The air shifted. It seemed less solid, more malleable, but still swirling in its menacing dance. Tom felt his stomach twist as memories crashed down like waves. "I had a friend," his voice cracked, "he was sick, and I thought it wouldn't happen to him. I ignored the signs. I ignored him. I could have saved him, I should have." A ripple of energy surged through the room. With every confession, the essence of the malevolent figure seemed to distort as if challenged by their truths. "Keep going," Kelly shouted, urgency cutting through her fear. "We need to pull this thing down with our honesty." "Fine." Mike stepped forward, chest heaving in reluctance. "I abandoned my family. I ran away when they needed me the most. They still hate me for it." He gritted his teeth, dread knotting in his throat. I didn't want to be a burden. But I was. The shadows quivered. The energy contracted around them, deepening the divide between despair and the power of their words. Then, in a moment of revelation, the figure hissed, a jagged sound filled with rage, "You think your truths can free you?" The kitchen wall cracked, echoing the tension spiraling outwards. "Face it, you've only just begun." The moment hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. What would happen next? Would their shared pain liberate them or plunge them deeper into the abyss? In the darkness that loomed, a flicker of light seemed to emerge as their bare truths battled against the shadow. But what if uncovering their pain released something far worse? The thought clawed at Tom's mind as the walls shook one last time, reverberating from the depths of their souls. The murmurs swirled like a tempest in the small room, crashing against each other and growing louder, feeding off the collective fear. Tom felt despair tighten its grip, but he couldn't afford to falter. "We have to break it. We're almost there," he yelled, encouraging his friends to keep pushing their truths. Anna clung to the pulse of adrenaline, and with a surge of courage, she stepped forward again. "I was so selfish," she confessed, her voice unsteady. "I thought I deserved happiness while my brother he never got the chance to find his. I was too wrapped up in my own life." The figure recoiled, its form flickering, like a candle caught in the wind. "Ah, but your sadness only feeds me," it taunted, the sound like gravel churning in a dark pit. It seemed to grow larger, the shadows stretching toward them, hungry. "No, Anna," Kelly exclaimed, stepping forward. "We'll take it down together." Fear crackled through her but tempered with determination. "I can't just stand here knowing I let my fear silence me. I lost my best friend to a cruel twist of fate, and I never told him how much he meant to me. I let regret swallow me whole." The air shuddered as Kelly's voice lanced through the room. The figure winced, its edges fraying, revealing glimpses of a past marred by torment. "What will your cries accomplish?" it hissed, but the uncertainty in its tone was unmistakable. "No more lies," Mike shouted, emboldened by the vulnerability around him. "I'm not running anymore. I'm here. I let fear drown my family's love in an endless sea of anger." Each word packed a punch, sending a shockwave through the room. "My truth is that love can exist among chaos. I can repair the damage." The entity, now trembling, pulled back like a recoiling serpent. The shadows it cast were fraying, losing their form, but it retaliated with a guttural scream. "You think you can rewrite your tragedies with words? I thrive on your anguish." "No!" Tom shouted, forcing himself to move in front of his friends despite a swell of uncertainty in his stomach. "We're taking back our power. I blamed myself for years for what happened to my friend. But the truth is, I was human. I made mistakes, but those mistakes don't define me." The figure shrieked, its form warping, branches of darkness lashing out. The kitchen erupted in a violent storm of corrupted memories, clips of laughter, shouts of anger, and drowned voices echoing inside their heads. "Stand firm," Tom urged through clenched teeth, anchored by conviction. "We're facing this together. Look at the shadows. They can't hold us if we unite." The air thickened with the weight of their shared confessions. The tempest grew heavier, and a flicker of light pulsed at the edges of their vulnerabilities. It grew larger with every ounce of honesty shared, but then, a sudden hush fell over the group. For a fleeting moment, the figure faltered entirely, teetering on the edge of annihilation, but only for a second. "You think you've won?" it snarled, voice dripping with loathing. "There is more. More pain than you know. You were never meant to escape this." Tom felt ice breach the warmth enveloping them. Doubt bloomed in the pit of his stomach. What lay beyond the threshold of uncovering their hurt? The room began to warp, the walls bending inward, and colors bleeding into blackness. Soon, the echo of a distant, haunting melody coiled through the air, luring them further away from escape. "What are you?" Anna cried, fear and astonishment mingling on her pale face. The figure stood firm, the shadows pulsating, eagerly awaiting the next twist of fate. But they didn't know what it had planned for them yet, and as darkness clawed its way in, a chilling realization dawned on Tom. What if the spirits of their past weren't the only ones that lurked beyond the veil? Tension hummed in the air, a frightening current running through them. Would their struggle reveal the truth, or fracture their fragile bonds forever? The air in the basement crackled with unresolved tension, memories swirling like angry phantoms reawakening with their shadows. Tom shook his head, eyes narrowing as he faced the figure emerging from the dark. "We won't back down," he shouted, the warmth of determination flowing through him and over his friends as they stood resolute. But that sense of security was fleeting. The figure's laughter echoed ominously, taunting them to question their strength. As the shadows closed in, the memories of their past surged to the forefront, flickering like dying embers. "We're tired of being ghosts," Kelly cried, her voice rising above the chaos. "We faced our truths. We will not let you twist them into chains." A tremor passed through the figure at her words, its form wavering as if caught off guard by their resolve. "Do you really think words can change what has been done?" it spat, voice slicing through the air. "You're nothing but remnants of your sorrows, and you can't contend with that." Tom felt his heart race, but he pushed aside the weight on his chest. He clenched the hammer tightly, remembering the camaraderie they formed while digging through their shared wounds. "Let us show you," he cried, throwing his voice against the howling shadows. "Our stories bind us, yes, but they won't define the end of our saga." With that, the truth spilled forth. Each of their fears became a stepping stone, and right there, in the pitch-black depths, clarity unfurled. Anna stepped forward first. "I know it's painful to confront, but I had the chance to honor my brother, yet I wasted it. I should have fought for him, faced his demons, and walked beside him. That's my truth, and it doesn't make me weak, it makes me human." The shadows around the figure pulsed violently, wavering like a flickering light. "I let my fears chain me," Mike shouted. "I abandoned my family when they needed my strength most. But I'm breaking those bonds today." He stepped forward defiantly. "I refuse their whispers to silence me." More shimmering flashes flickered through the room, as laughter, grief, and resolve mixed into a vibrant tapestry of their shared history. "I kept secrets," Kelly burst out, breathless as she shared the pain of her unspoken love. "I will not let that secrecy take me down anymore. Knowing how to love is my strength, not my fall." She joined the fight, combining her voice with theirs. Tom locked eyes with them, the encouragement swirling through him like a fresh wind. "Together, we fight," he shouted, gripping the hammer like a lifeline, thrusting it toward the darkness. "We're reclaiming our stories. You can't take that from us." The echoes of their pain morphed into an enlightening chorus, washing through the darkness, illuminating the space around them in a brilliant display of color and warmth. The figure shimmered, its twisted face contorting in shock. "What is this light?" it shrieked, audience to a power it could not contain. "We will not be defined by our pain." They echoed together, passion igniting a shimmering shield around them. The room began to expand, shadows collapsing inward as the light surged, tearing at the very fabric of the darkness, consuming them. As their voices reverberated through the storm, the figure retreated, flailing at the edges of burgeoning hope. "Your memories, they can't hold you. You will always be haunted." The shadows thrashed violently against the walls, heaving as if battling for dominance. "No!" Anna shouted, pouring every ounce of determination into her voice. "You have no power over us. We write the next chapter." And in that moment, the air crackled as light engulfed them, sweeping away the remnants of despair, indulging the essence of their truths. The figure howled, falling apart under the barrage of their collective courage, darkness disintegrating around them like powder in the wind. There was silence, a thick blanket of tranquility settling as the remnants of the haunting presence faded away. Tom blinked, awestruck, as he surveyed the room. It felt different, lighter, more welcoming. Finally, the shadows that had threatened to consume them had pulled back, and they stood in a space now empty of darkness. We did it, Mike murmured, his eyes wide as they looked around together. Hope pulsed in the air, thick and vibrant. Kelly nodded, emotion flooding her voice. We confronted our truth, and we didn't run. Tom felt the bonds of friendship solidify in that shared moment, the past no longer a prison. We're moving forward, he said. Together. The shadows that had once lurked at the corners of their minds were now embraced as part of their journeys. They stepped through the doorway into the night, hands still intertwined, hearts lighter and brimming with possibility. As dawn broke, the sky awash with shades of gold and pink, they glanced back at the lake house, knowing that chapter had closed. Every ghost, every memory, transformed from chains to lessons learned, arms wrapped tightly around their newfound hope, and in the heart of the woods that whispered secrets only to the lake, they found solace. They had stepped into the light together. This is the moment not to miss. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming soon. Smash that like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, and only true fans understand the importance of keeping this journey alive.